to his life. And our children see that. They don't have a choice because we're reminding them constantly of that, writing it on the door frames. We want to have a relationship we want our children to have a relationship with God. We want them to know God. But our children have to see that in us. They're going to do what we do. There's so many things in my life right now that I do. And I have an old tape in my mind. How would my dad do this? Because I'm not about to do something, him come home and have to redo the whole thing. How would my dad do this? Where would he plant this garden? How would he paint this? How would he fix this? That tape is there. And we want one of those tapes in our children's lives to be, how would my dad pray about this? What verse would my dad use here? What counsel would he give? We must have that personal relationship with God. Must be the foundation. Honor your father. Fathers, we have to honor God. We have to know about God. The second thing is as important. An honorable father loves and honors his wife. We must honor our wives, our children, in order to fulfill this fifth commandment. Honor your father and mother. Our children must see us as men honoring and respecting our wives and their mother. Ephesians chapter 5, Paul is talking about the home. He's talking about instructions for the home, a Christian homes. And in verse 25, Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives. All right? We get that. I love Judy. We love our wives. That's when we got married. We have a home. I love my wife. Don't stop there. How are we to love our wives? Listen to this. Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. Do I love my wife that much? Would she describe our love, that I would give my life for her, just as Jesus died on the cross for the church? To make her holy, cleansing her by washing with water through the Word, present her to himself as a radiant church. And then he says it again. Paul says it again. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For this reason, a man shall leave his wife, shall leave his parents, and the two become one flesh. Each of you must love his wife as he loves himself. How do we speak to our wives? How do we talk about our wives? Do we gripe and complain and put her down? And I've heard this. It hurts to hear a husband talk down about his wife. It just hurts my ears. But some children live there. Are they sitting there eating their bowl of Cheerios while you're yelling at your wife about something? We can't do that. As honorable men, as men of God, honorable men that our children are commanded to honor, we must love our wives and respect them. Honor your wives, love your wives, just like Christ loved the church. And Jesus never dishonored the church. It's the bride of Christ. In the same way, we have to honor our wives. We spend a lot of times on ourselves. Some of us have bass boats and we go fishing. Some of us have workrooms filled with all kinds of equipment to build stuff. We have all these different things. Do we devote ourselves to our wives and the mother of our children in that way? In order to be a father, an honorable father, we have to honor God. We have to know God ourselves. And we have to honor our wives just in the same way. The third thing I wanted to mention is an honorable father is responsible for his children's spiritual training. An honorable father takes the personal responsibility for his children's spiritual training. It's so easy to put that off on someone else. Well, they'll go to church, and their Sunday school teacher will lead them to Christ and teach them the Bible. The children's pastor, the pastor don't hear about the gospel. It's their mother's job to get them to church, and they'll learn it, they'll pick it up. An honorable father has the personal responsibility to lead his children to faith in Jesus Christ and disciple them. Ephesians chapter 6, that next chapter. Ephesians chapter 6, beginning in verse 4, is very clear. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. I don't know why that was James's favorite Bible verse growing up. He loved that verse. But I try not to do that. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Ephesians 6:4. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. He's talking to fathers. Paul's talking to fathers. It's our responsibility not to exasperate our children. And a teenage son will have a different definition than you do as a father of exasperating. Jim V, we talked about that this morning. He's got thumbs up back there. But don't exasperate them. Don't constantly put them down. Don't make them feel bad. Don't criticize all the time. That our son, I don't want my son to think in his mind when he thinks of me, he always putting him down. Always making fun of him. Always have a problem. But the majority of that time I spend with my son, James, that we spend with our children, bring them up, raise them in the training and instruction